Hey everybody, welcome back to Bleeding Cool's weekly recap of The Walking Dead Season 8. My name is Ray Flook. I'm the television beat writer for Bleeding Cool, and we're going to be taking a look at the mid-season penultimate episode, Time for After, as we're leading up to Sunday night's big 88-minute season finale. Not a lot going on, more kind of a build-up to what we're going to get over what sounds like essentially is going to be a mini-movie leading into the holiday break. If there was going to be an overall theme that I had to pick for this episode, I would go with no good plan goes un-effed up, is probably the best way to put it. I think we're seeing a continuation of what happens when both Rick and Negan are in situations where their lieutenants and their underlings or their supporting staff just are not on the same page. We see instances with Negan's crew between Dwight and Eugene. We see with Rick, Daryl, Rosita, Tara, and Michonne and Morgan and their plan to lead an impromptu attack on the sanctuary. You know it's just not going to lead to anything good because, again, things were just going too well. There, of course, has to be some major screw-up to get things going. So we're going to jump right in. As you can tell, I have my handy notes here again, so let's get started. We begin right from the start with Rick inside the storage container, being held there by Jadis and the scavengers. Sorry for those of you who got excited about it, but no, Rick was in boxer shorts. I know there were a lot of people talking, oh, nude Rick Grimes, and especially with Jadis constantly talking about wanting to sculpt him nude and all the artwork in nude, but no, ladies and gentlemen, he was in boxers, at least from the point we see him. He gets brought out. Jadis is taking a couple pictures of him. He still strikes her with that whole Luke Skywalker Return of the Jedi, like, hey, look, it's not too late. You can fix this, even though she has plans for him for something that's going to happen, quote unquote, after. So there we go from there. We go right to the credits. We come back. We go to Eugene and Dwight. Eugene is already starting to come up with a plan to try and help everybody out because the way it's looking like, it seems like Rick's right. There's about maybe 2 days left before this whole thing wraps up. Eugene's trying to save as many people as he possibly can. He also ends up having a conversation with Dwight, and he makes sure Dwight is aware that he knows that Dwight's the inside mole. The whole thing with the paint and everything else. And they have a little bit of a confrontation. Dwight at first tries to approach him from more of the tough, threatening standpoint, but then tries to reason him a little bit, playing upon the idea that, you know, we're talking about people who were Eugene's friends in the past, and Dwight really is trying to play up on that. You'll see throughout the episode, Eugene tries to downplay his involvement with them by referring to them as traveling companions. But we all know the better for it, and we know Eugene's just saying that as a coping mechanism. But Dwight really drives the point home because he's really been saying to Eugene, like, look, you've been here, you've been kind of benefiting the group, and the more stuff you do that you think is for the benefit of everybody, it's really just for the benefit of Negan and for the Saviors. For the people who, when all is said and done, at least, all right, let's say not Negan so much, but the lieutenants and the underlings really don't seem to give a rat's ass too much about the workers, as we saw previous episodes, and I think really what we see later on in this episode. There's a great quote that Dwight hits Eugene, which is, once you do those things, you become those things, no turning back. Now, granted, there's a little irony in that. I think Dwight's talking like he's Rick's army. Rick's army, yeah. I don't think he realizes that Tara and Dwight are basically looking to kind of take him out the moment all this starts to settle. So the whole thing about not, you become the things you do, it's interesting since Dwight's trying to earn some type of redemption, but you've got the holy hands of divine justice in Tara and Daryl coming after him. So we'll see how much that holds for Dwight's future. Okay, we now get a shot with Gabriel and Eugene. Eugene is being asked by the doctor who Gabriel's trying to get to go back to the hilltop to help with Maggie. The doctor asks Eugene to sit with Gabriel, and that's where, again, we find out that Gabriel's suffering from multiple infections, so he is really, really not doing well. We get another reference to traveling companions, and again, it's Eugene at this point starting to piss me off a little bit because to use that phrase in front of somebody like, especially Gabriel, who's there suffering, it's a little rough. That was a little rough. They start getting into a discussion about the faith versus practicality, and Eugene really just making the case like, look, I'm doing whatever I gotta do to survive. Nobody's gonna judge me. That's all I do. That's all I ever do. My brain is my greatest weapon, and if my brain is my greatest weapon and it's gonna end up saving my life, well then so be it. But Gabriel, man of faith, constantly with or without the collar, he hits Eugene with a really great line. Maybe it's not impossible that you will know the right thing to do when the time comes. And I'll be honest with you, I don't want to spoil where I'm going to be going with this for the next couple minutes, but my hope is that that moment comes in the finale, because I got to be honest with you, Eugene's just continued to start to bother me as this episode rolled along. So I'm hoping there's some kind of divine epiphany that ends up, chiming in at the last minute, because so far we don't get it. We get a quick cut to Morgan, and we see that the snipers are ready for Tara and Daryl to go through with their plans. We see that Eugene has been really, really relying on booze to get through a lot of decisions he's had to make. We see a little slice of life for him where, during the day he's doing little things like fixing boom boxes and things like that, and he gets lectured hard. And the only thing that's going to sound weird, I started thinking about France in World War II. You got to go with me on this one. This whole idea about, they always talk about how France's economy actually grew and prospered under, German occupation during World War II. And I think that's kind of this, almost in a sense, what she's getting at Eugene about. It's like, you know what, there's certain things you do, but you're doing to more than just survive. You're doing to be like top dog, #1 shit. And, if booze is what you need to do to deal with it and live through it, then maybe that's telling you something. Maybe that's karma kicking the ass and telling you what you're doing is not wrong, no matter how you may rationalize it. But seems like there's always enough booze for Eugene to kind of drown the sorrows away, even rougher later on in the episode. So we get now Daryl, Rosita, Tara, and Michonne, who are talking about the plan, and we already got a sense last week that there wasn't 100% commitment by everybody on there. We see right now in the beginning of the segment, Rosita is just not on board. Again, it's echoing the feelings I think a lot of Walking Dead fans like myself have, which is, Rick's plan's been going really, really well. What part of the plan made you go, okay, I need to improve and fix it? And again, I think Rosita says it perfectly when she says, I believe in Rick Grimes, which I think we all do, which I would think most of them should do up to this point. Not that he's been perfect, but out of all of them, he's kind of led them pretty well up to this point, kept a good, decent chunk of them alive. So Rosita backs off and offers Michonne a chance to leave also. Michonne refuses, and in a very telling moment, and I think very fitting, Rosita mentions Sasha and uses Sasha as I guess you would call a cautionary tale to Michonne about, be careful of your anger and what you need to get that anger taken care of, because it could drive you too far. In this case, it could drive you inside of a coffin as a walker, at least in your last moments, trying to do the best you possibly can. It's also very interesting to mention to Sasha, because that's going to come in majorly into play in a couple of minutes. So we cut now to the scene that was sent out for early previews. It was something I posted in the live blog. We get a confrontation between Eugene and Negan, and I believe Negan when he's talking about this. I think in some respects it's always good to soup up somebody's ego like Eugene, but I think Negan sees it. I think Negan sees two strengths in the zombie apocalypse. There's the hard-ass strength that he has to make decisions, kill a few for the benefit of the many, and to create some type of structure and order. And I think with Eugene, he sees the strength in, as he refers to, that gray matter up inside, that gray spongy matter up inside his head. He's not a fighter. He needs people to protect him and save him. But when given a good environment, Eugene can produce and can produce well. We've seen it all along, and we see it this episode, and we see it, unfortunately. Yeah, unfortunately, we see that a little later on. Thankfully, plan gets taken care of, but Eugene turns to be a little bit too smart sometimes for a given situation. So there's a funny scene where Negan holds out his hand for a handshake, and I'll be honest with you, I don't blame in the context that Eugene was trying to kiss his hand and Negan had to stop him, because the way he was holding his hand out, it kind of had that royal, like, Godfather type kiss the ring thing. But the importance of the handshake, and Negan makes this painfully known to Eugene, where he says, a handshake is a sign of mutual respect. Not many get that from me. And you believe that. You genuinely believe that there is a level of respect that Negan has for not just Eugene's survival instincts, but what his brain brings to the game, especially when you're trying to put together a new world order. So then we get to see the brain, I guess you would call it, of Eugene in action. We start to see Eugene back in his place, and he's fixing the boombox, and he starts concentrating on the speaker. And as a viewer, you're already thinking to yourself, oh, hell, he's already coming up with a plan. He then goes down into the basement, goes searching around, because he remembers in the coffin that Sasha was in that she had the iPod. And that's what he gets his hands on, an iPod and a speaker. And the only thing I'm sitting there thinking is, this son of a bitch has come up with a plan to get the walkers away from the sanctuary. And Eugene just goes to the top of the list of people I need to see killed. And we know it was that creepy serial killer guy one time with Ezekiel. but thankfully Jerry took care of that. Yeah, and right now he's got to now go to the top of the list. Sorry, just has to. We see Eugene on top of the roof with a drone. Yep, he makeshift drone. He's got the iPod and speaker. He's going to fly the drone with the speaker going to lead the walkers away from the sanctuary. Thankfully, somebody shows up with a gun right behind Dwight's head. Oh, well, I just spoiled it. Actually, behind Eugene's head. Spoiler, it's Dwight. But I really don't think that's any big surprise considering the confrontations they had. Now, I'm going to be honest. At this point, I think I may have been screaming at the screen, just pull the trigger. What's the point anyway? But Dwight can't. You know, again, I think Dwight understands Eugene if he doesn't agree with him. But I think there's always this feeling of, from Dwight, it's like, well, who am I not to give Eugene a chance to redeem himself? He's cut me slack. He didn't sell me out. And look where I'm at. You know, Rick and his group should have killed me 1,000 times over. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But so I think instead of killing Eugene, he shoots the drone, thankfully. Because otherwise, the way that thing was flying, of course, it's Eugene. So, of course, it was going to work, and it was going to work incredibly well. Little do we know that there's already a plan in place that's going to get the walkers out of the courtyard area anyway, which, of course, is driving the truck through the front entrance while snipers are taking care of anybody on the outside. So we see that happen. The truck goes to the front. Walkers start milling in. And lo and behold, what happens? We start getting to the tragedy. And what is the tragedy? Who is the first line of defense from the walkers but the workers? The poor workers that we have just gotten to get a sense of, and we get a sense of what they've been going through. Of course, they become the sacrificial lambs while Negan and his crew are discussing where to go with this. Now, let's keep in mind, we've got Eugene who's gone back to drinking. There was one point at the end of the episode where I thought he was actually starting to drink himself into a coma. But we see Eugene drinking. We're not sure what the ultimate plans are of Negan and his lieutenants because we need to cut back to Rick and Jadis. Now, we see Rick being led back out again, and it looks like this time Rick is going to be fed to another one of those gladiator walkers, except, of course, this is Rick Grimes. So Rick Grimes goes all serious post-apocalyptic Jason Bourne, takes out the scavengers, takes out, gets control of the walker, takes out and gets control of Jadis, and essentially forces her to surrender and to submit to siding with them, as Rick essentially has her pressed face right near to where that walker is. Like just a couple of inches would make the difference between whether she gets bit or not. But it is a sign of respect that she acquiesces and decides to side with Rick. Little spoiler on the side that I know nothing about, just pure speculation. Be interesting if the scavengers suddenly became the Whisperers. Just a thought, you know, especially with their not using a lot of words and things like that. But anywho, that's for down the road. But up until for now, we see Jadis and the scavengers joining Rick as they make their way back to the sanctuary, and things are oddly, weirdly quiet. Rick climbs a fence to look over, and what does Rick notice? That all the walkers from the main sanctuary are gone. Everything is quiet, and suddenly they're getting fired upon. So something worked. The plan worked. Now, what that led to, I think, is what we're going to be getting in this Sunday's season finale. How It's Gotta Be is what it's called. It is a special 88-minute episode. We are being told that something major, huge happens in this episode that fans will be talking about between now and when the show returns in February. So I'm very, very excited to see that. Couple cheap plugs. Tomorrow night, Sunday, or if you're watching this on Sunday, it would be tonight. So if you're watching it tonight or on Sunday night, whichever fits, 7 o'clock Eastern Time on @OldManGeek on Instagram. We're going to be doing the weekly Static Live for 1 hour. Then at 8 p.m., we're going to be starting our Walking Dead live blog pregame for the 9 o'clock official mid-season finale live blog. It's going to be on bleedingcool.com. Check out bleedingcool.com around 8 o'clock. We will have the main live blog page available at that time. You can have it open, have it on the side, see what I'm thinking about it while you guys are watching it. Might even be doing some live video during the time. Might be doing some reaction video depending on what happens. But definitely please keep that in mind. And I appreciate you guys joining me for these recaps. We're going to have the finale recap up within about 24 to 48 hours after tomorrow night. But thank you guys for joining me all season. I look forward to you guys joining me for one more live blog and one more recap. Look forward to you guys seeing you Sunday night. Take care and thanks for joining me.